And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We're glad you're streaming with us. As we begin, once again, with breaking news this hour, we are continuing to follow all details with regard to that explosion at the Rainbow Bridge. It's at the U.S.-Canada border. We can tell you just past noon, we started getting word of a car explosion. We did learn from authorities that the car was coming from Canada into New York, and there at the Rainbow Bridge in Niagara, there were two checkpoints. That car pulling into the first checkpoint, something triggered some type of suspicion among the border agents. They asked the car to move up to the second checkpoint. It was at that point that the car started full speed ahead, either crashing into something or exploding there at the second checkpoint. We can tell you that authorities have confirmed the fatalities of the individuals inside that car. Whether it is related to terrorism, we still don't know, but we can tell you that this is something that we have been very concerned about as a country. The FBI putting out security bulletins. We have been on high alert nationwide as we were coming into the Thanksgiving holiday, where we have big gatherings, in particular the famous Macy's Thanksgiving parade that's set to take place tomorrow. We knew that security had been increased just to keep all eyes on that large gathering, because we've had so many protests and a lot of tension since this war has broken out in the Middle East. And so there have been concerns of attacks or terrorism attacks, and yet we have not been able to confirm that indeed this was related to terrorism. There is a lot of concern, and law enforcement has been on alert, concerned about a situation like this. And we can tell you the White House is monitoring this now. We also heard from Canada's Prime Minister, Trudeau, was speaking at Parliament, telling the Speaker of the extraordinary, how they're taking this extraordinarily seriously. And matter of fact, the Prime Minister said he needed to leave because he needed to respond immediately to his cabinet personnel on what was happening here at the border. We know that New York Governor Kathy Hochul has headed to the scene as well. And there's multiple agencies as the FBI Counterterrorism Task Force takes the lead on this investigation. We have a whole panel of folks that have been breaking news and getting all the details and giving us just insight and perspective on what we're monitoring here, as we still haven't been able to confirm that this explosion was tied to terrorism. We are just trying to piece together all the details. Once again, we've got our Aaron Katersky, our senior investigative correspondent, that's been working this from the very beginning. New York PD Chief of Detectives, formerly and now a contributor with us, Bob Boyce. Also, Mick Mulroy, our national security and defense analyst, our justice producer, Luke Barr, joining us via phone. And then also you can see we have John Cohen. John, glad you're with us, former acting Secretary of Intelligence at the Department of Homeland Security. So we've got our bases covered, that's for sure. Aaron, let's start with you. We've been learning so much since this took place 3 hours ago, a little more than 3 hours ago. But why don't we start with this suitcase, briefcase that was found there at the scene? Do we know anything more about that? Are bomb techs still assessing that since this car exploded?
We believe whatever this was, briefcase, suitcase, did not pose an immediate threat. Our sources are now telling us so far that there appears to be no evidence that there were explosives found at the scene. They're still checking, and they are not, giving a firm yes or no, but our sources are leading us away from the idea that there were explosives found at the scene where the vehicle exploded. It was just after noon when that vehicle was trying to or had crossed the Rainbow Bridge, encountered a checkpoint, and then was directed for secondary screening for some reason, sped toward the secondary screening location, and then crashed after getting to a pretty good rate of speed, we're told. The impact of the crash appears to have been what caused the vehicle to blow up, but authorities are still assessing the area, trying to figure out exactly what had happened. Kira, within the last several minutes, too, our sources are also leading us away from the idea that this may have been an attempted terror attack. And again, they're not labeling it one thing and not another, but there are a range of possibilities that the authorities are still investigating as to what this may have been, and whether this car may have been involved in some kind of criminal activity. Something like that is still being run down.
So they're moving more away from potential terror attack. Is that what I'm understanding, Aaron?
At the moment, that's what our sources are saying. They're still not being definitive. And of course, everyone is mindful of the environment, this heightened threat environment the United States is in, given what's happened October 7th and the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas and the tensions that is causing, and the surge in potential threats around the holiday time. A bulletin today warned that the follow-on threats from the Hamas-Israel war could be particularly poignant for transportation infrastructure. There was no specific threat named, but quite a coincidence that bulletin appeared today for us. So the authorities are certainly mindful. And here in New York City, where the annual Thanksgiving Day parade's going to step off tomorrow, the NYPD says they're going to put extra assets at bridges and tunnels, monitor them from the air, put extra manpower there just to make sure those crossings are safe and that people feel safe, even though, again, there is no evidence that, at least so far, that this was any kind of an act of terrorism right now, Kira.
All right, but clearly everyone at the highest level, all the way to the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada, have been briefed. They are monitoring it. They are on the phones and staying in close touch with all their cabinet members. Also, New York Governor Kathy Hochul en route, possibly already there at the scene. And you mentioned, Aaron, the transportation warnings, the security bulletins that went out. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, now coming out with a statement saying, I've been briefed by our staff in New York State and headquarters on the explosion and related bridge closures there on the U.S.-Canada border. I am in touch with my Canadian counterpart. Travelers in the area should follow instructions and updates from law enforcement and state officials on travel impacts. Aaron, do we have any idea the impact on travel now that they've closed all 4 bridges there in the area, pretty much cutting off those routes between the U.S. and Canada? This is going to impact holiday travel. Do we know how long that could last? And could those closures be lifted once we have confirmation on exactly why this vehicle exploded, who was driving the car, who was in the car, what was in the car? Everything we all want to know right now. Yeah,
Kira, you'd expect that as soon as the authorities are confident they have a good handle on what this was, and maybe more importantly what it was not, that those travel restrictions would be lifted. But they were in place, we're told, out of an abundance of caution at all 4 bridges linking Canada and the United States over the Niagara River. We don't know whether there were any additional threats to those bridges that necessitated the closures, or whether it was just because of what happened on the Rainbow Bridge. We're also told within the last moment, according to the FAA, that it has paused all arrivals and departures at Buffalo's airport. And again, whether that was out of an abundance of caution or whether there was any kind of a threat, the FAA didn't say, but all arrivals and departures at Buffalo International Airport are now paused as well, Kira.
All right, Aaron, Bob, Mick, Luke, John, we're going to keep going. Please stay with me. We're just going to take a quick break.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.